Hello and welcome, I'm Alice Gerjuk and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. The 2019 NATO Parliamentary Assembly concluded its work in London this week and adopted a report on Ukraine. It was announced by the head of the Ukrainian delegation to NATO. So what's in the report and what message does it send to Ukrainians and the international community? We will address these questions to my guest in the studio. Joining us today is Irakli Dzhanashiya, expert on national security and defense of Ukraine at the Ukrainian Institute for the Future. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
So, Mr. Dzhanashiya, can we say that the latest NATO report is the biggest achievement for Ukraine at the recent Parliamentary Assembly?
Well, yes. It is, surely. First of all, we have to say that this report contains 4 chapters. One of them, it's about Ukrainian-Russian war, first chapter. Second chapter is about stage of defense of Ukraine and Ukrainian capability in defense. Third chapter is about economical capability of Ukraine. And the fourth chapter dedicated to the freedom of word in Ukraine. But from my point of view, the most important part was mentioned by Canadian representative during introduction, when she said that Ukraine has a long way to go toward European Union and NATO. And
towards the membership, yes? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to participation in European Union and NATO as a full-scale member. That was, let's say, a stone into our garden. The point about that we have to adopt all standards, European Union and NATO, and we have lots to do, is a significant words, like reading between the lines. Ukraine, you have to do something. You can't stay and stand as you used to do. Afterwards, there was another quote. But that stone flew toward other side. Actually, it flew toward European Union and NATO, and their weakening positions because of Russian presence in European Union countries, because of Brexit, and because of Turkey. Canadian representative directly said that Ukraine can be another source for enforcing your positions. That was directly said there. Also, one other point that was mentioned there, which
for enforcing whose positions? Excuse me?
European Union and NATO's positions in general. I mean, currently we're seeing how they're losing their positions because of different quarrels, because of Russian intrusion in almost every European country's internal activities.
Right, countries are becoming dependent on Russia.
Well, business,
yes.
Russian business is primary goal for in Europe. I mean, where Russian business is, there is Russian interest, and where money is, there is interest of other European countries. And first of all, European countries will be dedicated on their own interest. And if this interest will be concluded with Russia, if this interest will give money, then they will go on with Russia. That's easy logic. Where money is, there is other countries' interest. But I would like to emphasize on one more point that was mentioned by Canadian representative, who said that European Union and NATO should strengthen their presence in the Black Sea and emphasize their attention over Kerch Bay and over stopping ships there. This is a very good point, because we have lost the grasp of what is currently going on there. After Russia pulling down the time of constant strangling ships there from 128 hours to 24 hours a day, everyone ceased. European Union felt and NATO felt like they won. Ukraine felt like they finally got their goal. And Russia continues to stop ships for 24-28 hours a day.
And all the businesses are experiencing lots of losses.
Exactly. One day loss is approximately $10,000.
This is a huge amount of money.
This is a huge amount of money. But I want to emphasize another point. If we will go back in time for approximately more than a year, Let's remember June, July of 2018, when this whole story just began. Russians started to stop ships for 18 to 24 hours. Immediately at that point, European Union and Ukraine started to yell and claim that it shouldn't be done like this. Afterwards,
because there should be a purpose of such a procedure.
And there we can see beautiful Russia game. I can completely say I'm really fascinated about how they fooled us. They increased the time of seizure of ships in the bay toward 128 hours. And then in a month's time, they pulled it down to 24 hours.
So everyone was happy.
Yeah, and Russia still stopped the ships. Perfect. So yeah, I think that was a very good point from Canadian representative, reminding them that we still have this problem and it has to be sorted out.
Perfectly thought through scenario. But well, let's focus again on the NATO report. So you mentioned what the report is about, but also we know that the Ukrainian side proposed some amendments. Could you please specify for the audience what these amendments were about?
Are we talking about another report that was made by...
No. This is still the report that was prepared by Canada, but then the head of the Ukrainian delegation, Chernev, said that Ukrainian side proposed corrections that were concerning cyber threats, as well as the resolution of the threat of proliferation of nuclear weapons. And those amendments were also supported by the NATO member states, and the report now contains these amendments. And also Ukraine introduced a clause to the report underscoring the failure to comply with the Budapest Memorandum by both the West, the United States and the United Kingdom and Russia. And now I want to clarify this issue about the Budapest Memorandum, because from one side we know that it allegedly provides Ukraine with security assurances after it gave up on status of the nuclear state. So it was signed by three nuclear powers: the Russian Federation, the UK and the United States of America. Yes, just to remind the audience. And the US was one of the countries who supported Ukraine's amendments. Does this mean that the United States recognizes its non-compliance with the Budapest Memorandum now?
First of all, I want to emphasize that in the Budapest Memorandum, you have to go and read it from the very beginning till the end. Me, myself, believed like 1 year ago that due to Budapest Memorandum, United Kingdom and United States of America have to protect us physically in case if we will be attacked. But no, Budapest Memorandum only ensures that nuclear country, United States of America, United Kingdom and Russia will never ever attack Ukraine in case if Ukraine won't attack them first. That's the only point that is mentioned there. Also, they will protect Ukraine from any nuclear threat.
Okay, so now Russia is a nuclear state.
Russia is a nuclear state.
It doesn't pose a nuclear threat to Ukraine.
Exactly.
This is a tricky game.
Diplomacy is a very tricky game.
So now we cannot refer to the Budapest Memorandum, that's what you mean?
No, we should refer to the Budapest Memorandum. We should go on and trade as much as possible. First of all, during the Budapest Memorandum, we have made a very big mistake, not about giving up nuclear weapons. We should have gave up nuclear weapons, but we should have asked more. And I'm talking about political position and financial position. We could have asked credits and financing under marvelous 0%. But we didn't think about this, or we didn't want about this. I don't know. I wasn't born at this moment.
So in which way can we use the Budapest Memorandum now?
Just as a piece of paper.
That's sad to hear. Well, let's move on from this topic. I was wondering, is there any assessment of Ukraine's efforts to reform its army in order to comply with NATO standards? Because we all know that Ukraine has been striving to change and to improve the standards of the Ukraine's armed forces, and in 2016 they launched a new deadline, 2020, and now we have only 3 months left until 2020. And I'm curious whether there was any assessment of Ukraine's efforts to change throughout all this time.
Well, that's a very painful subject, but we have to talk about this. I have to specify that not so long ago, if I'm not mistaken, 3 months ago, Ukrainian MOD has presented their achievements in achieving NATO standards, and they're saying directly that they have adopted 194 standards out of 11,066, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But the point is that we haven't seen those standards. After I directly, as a representative of a legal body of our institute, asked the list of these standards, it was more than 2 months ago. We're still waiting for a reply, although they should have given us this reply 20 days ago, 20 days after they got the message.
Who?
MOD.
Mm-hmm.
They've said directly that this is not a secret information, and that can't be a secret information. They should have directly put this on the website of MOD. Even so, half a year ago, there was a page on MOD website which stated the amount and the list of NATO standards they have adopted, and there was only 5 standards they have adopted. Since, if I'm not mistaken, August 2015, this amount and this list hasn't changed. And then half a year later, they're stating that they have adopted 194 standards, and we don't know nothing about them. After we ask, we don't get a reply. Now, the tricky part about adopting NATO standards is that NATO doesn't actually check whether you have adopted those standards or not. It is all like a gentleman agreement. You're saying you did, we believe you. That's it. If you're saying that you have adopted 1,100 standards, then probably you have done so.
But don't you think that they're going to come with some kind of mission to assess theoretically, if Ukraine will be ready to apply for membership to NATO, I think that NATO for sure is going to send some mission in order to assess.
This is not the first such kind of a shadow business of NATO and this kind of Western European countries that haven't actually adopted normally standards. One of them is Bulgaria, whose defense situation is in the same dire states as the Ukrainian one, unfortunately, and they don't want to change either.
But Bulgaria is the EU member state. So
but Bulgaria is a EU member.
Probably this matters a lot.
From my point of view, we shouldn't hunt down the participation in NATO and European Union as a final goal that will save us. The final goal that should be in front of us is actually adopting those standards and getting stronger.
Yeah.
NATO and European Union is not this marvelous medicine.
I mean, it's not panacea, but of course, we can strive to become a member of these organizations, but of course we can never be sure what can result in a better success for Ukraine. Now we are about to wrap up this conversation because we're running out of time, so I would like to ask you the very last question. It is very interesting that recently we've got this report from NATO and from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He also published a very powerful report on Ukraine, unveiling a lot of research data, and among other things, it contains very serious information about the illegal resettlement of Crimean population to Russia and vice versa. So this report proofs, basically, and condemns Russia for violating the Geneva Conventions, and if I may refer to some other experts, it also violates the Rome Statute. So after 5 years of war, it seemed like the world is ready to be tired or to get tired of the conflict in eastern Ukraine, of the war in eastern Ukraine, and is ready to forget about the war as it did about Georgia and about Transnistria in Moldova. So my question is, now we see these two serious reports being published. What sort of message can they mean to Ukraine and the international community? What do they mean to us?
Exactly what you just said. Guys, you're tired. European Union and NATO. Russia is consuming you bit by bit. Ukraine, you're not striving enough.
Is not striving enough for what?
First of all, getting stronger. Second point is trying to beat back Russia.
So basically, you think that Ukraine can restore peace on the occupied territories only if it becomes economically stronger and, of course, if it reforms the armed forces.
Yes.
Well, let's hope.
I mean, it's obviously, if we will be economically stronger, there will be no dispute in occupied regions. I'm talking about DNR and LNR. Crimea is a separate object, and we can't actually look at this from this perspective. But if we were talking about so-called DNR and LNR, if we will be economically stronger, if we will be more successful,
they will strive to rejoin Ukraine.
Exactly.
It's like the scenario with West Germany and Konrad Adenauer's policy. Well, let's hope that this is going to be a task for the new convocation of the Ukrainian parliament and the new president. I thank you for your comments and thank you for being a guest today in the studio. That was Irakli Dzhanashiya, expert on national security and defense of Ukraine at the Ukrainian Institute for the Future. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Oles Garjuk. Goodbye.